like the creation stories that tell us that there's this God that was in the way, a giant God that we unalived, but they're not unalive. They're actually just sleeping. But we took their head and created the dome of the sky where people get the idea that the earth is flat. So that's where do they get that idea from? Because with the dome of the sky that everybody talked about for thousands of years. Well, that dome of the sky came out of a God that was unalived, and we took the skull of that God and we're living inside of it. That's the story. And why is that the story? We're living inside of it, and the mountains are the teeth, and the water is the blood of this giant who's not unalived, but sleeping. So the story is supposed to be there to teach you you're in the mind of the sleeping God. We exist in the mind of the God. We are in the mind of God. That's what that story was supposed to be telling. But they took away that part that we were in the mind of a sleeping God and that we were living in a skull of a sleeping God. And then they said, no, that's just, there's no giants, there's none of that. And God is somewhere out there, but the earth is still flat. So they had this idea that there was a dome there and that the earth was flat because we were living in the mind of a sleeping God. That's where that all came from. That evolved from 38,000 years ago down to 2,000 years ago. And then people started realizing the earth wasn't flat. And here we are 2,000 years later. And now we have one group of people of a certain age group, millennials, who believe that the earth is flat. They're the only ones who do. Other people are going, yeah, I guess maybe it's possible. Because if you distrust the powers that should not be, then you start going, well, if we didn't go to the moon, they're probably lying about everything else. The earth is probably flat. It's not. It's not. Those stories were told 40,000 years ago to children. Okay? We have a completely different genome with completely different education, with completely different ideology now. And we're trying to base it in the earth has a dome. So therefore, where'd you get the idea that the dome? Because they talked about it in history. Where did they get the idea of the dome? They got the idea of the dome because they killed a god and built the world in its skull. Okay? So the dome of the sky was the inside of the skull of the god that you're in. Well, that's just nonsense. Ergo, the earth isn't flat and you're not inside of the dome. The concept of the dome comes from being in a sleeping dead god's head.